resolving the many issues that have come up in the discussions we've had over these last several weeks. Their hard work and dedication as we work through this complicated negotiation to fruition has been unwavering. We are so pleased to say that the fundamental structure for a lease has been agreed to today. There are many details still to be worked out, but as a result, there will be a new deal which will ensure the Red Wings' financial well-being for the next lease term. Our desire has always been to come to an agreement which would ensure the long-term success of the team so that the Red Wings will be able to continue to provide entertainment which is high quality and affordable for this community. I also want to thank Cheryl Donalfo and her team for their patience as this process has unfolded. It has been a long and arduous process, but the outcome is an excellent one for the greater Rochester area, and we thank you for your support in all of this. And thank you.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Young Turks. I'm Anna Kasparian. Joining me today is Michael Shore. Jake is out. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know that Jake was out until 2 minutes before the show. But I'm excited to host with you, Michael.
All right, good. I'm glad you're excited.
Michael
you
comes
haven't
in.
shown it yet, though.
I know. Michael comes in. Things are chaotic, and I didn't get a chance to properly greet you. But we're gonna have an awesome show. There's lots of updates to the story out in Houston, and we also have a pretty explosive update on what's going on with the Russia investigation. So we'll get to that. And Trump's getting a little bit of criticism from Fox News from Laura Ingraham. So we'll jump into that story as well. So I'm excited about it. How are you doing, Michael?
I'm well. I mean, it's a terrible, terrible story we're having to cover. I hate covering this disaster stuff. I hate seeing people. I hate the conversations that come out of it. That it goes to partisanship now. That it's a red state, and the people in blue states say, well, they didn't want the funding. These people are desperate. There's plenty of time to deal with it.
Exactly. It doesn't matter what someone's political ideology is or what a state's political leanings are. We're Americans. We help each other out. And unfortunately, things immediately lead to people going to their corners and yelling at each other.
Right, and that's what happens. And there is going to be time to talk about the hypocrisy. There's going to be time to talk about if this is the right moment in our history for tax cuts. Right. There's going to be a huge conversation about the EPA, about FEMA, about filling jobs, about the positions of Republicans and in the Northeast who are still pissed about Sandy, who say, all of that. But also, these are just people,
Exactly. I came across, I'm not familiar with the guy. He's some retired radio host, I guess conservative radio. And he just tweeted this really disgusting thing about a black mother who was on CNN, and she's desperate. She's dealing with a tragic situation with this storm. She evacuated her home. And his response was, oh, black woman drops the F-bomb during CNN interview, real classy, where's her husband? Oh, right, he doesn't exist. Like, who says things like that? Why do these people exist? What's wrong with you?
Who was this person?
I wasn't familiar with him, but he had a pretty significant following, so he must be someone. And I don't even...
Significant following. Significant following, but significant people.
Exactly, yeah. All right, let's move on to some updates on the situation in Texas. Donald Trump did visit Texas today as an effort to show his support for the good people of Texas following the storm, Hurricane Harvey. Now, he did not go to Houston. He decided to go to Corpus Christi. According to the New York Times, he settled on Corpus Christi because it was 30 miles away from the most severely impacted parts of the golf course and suffered relatively light damage from the initial impact of the storm. Now, his camp is alleging that the reason why he made that decision was because he didn't want to disturb the recovery effort and the relief efforts in Houston. And, there's really no way of confirming whether or not that's the real reason why he didn't go to went to Corpus Christi and not to Houston. I do know that anytime the president travels somewhere, there's a huge security detail that comes along with it. And so it is what it is.
Also, the president's not going to go to the middle of... You cannot get everybody that needs to go into the middle of Houston now because it's flooded, and you don't want to sort of... Drain is the worst word I could use right now, but you don't want to sap their resources in Houston right now to protect the president, whoever that president is, at any time. So it makes sense that he went to Corpus Christi. The storm has passed there. There were people there. It's where it made landfall, where a lot of the affected businesses are too.
Exactly. So he's about 4 hours away from Houston, the nation's fourth most populous city, and so there have been videos circulating on social media as well as the mainstream media in regard to his visit. And he did get a little bit of criticism for some of the statements he made to the residents of Corpus Christi. I don't want to give too much away. Let's go ahead and toss the video.
Thank you, everybody. What a crowd, what a turnout. I want to thank our governor. Your governor has done a fantastic job. Governor Abbott, thank you very much. I will tell you, this is historic. It's epic what happened. But you know what? It happened in Texas, and Texas can handle anything. Thank you all, folks. Thank you. Thank you.
So Christina Wilkie, who's an investigative reporter, had tweeted about how he seemed amazed at the crowd size, which is a strange thing to talk about, given the fact that so many people are dealing with such a tragic situation. And he's obsessed with crowd sizes. We all know that. Right. He mentions crowd sizes all the time. And then historic and epic makes it sound like something great happened, when in reality something tragic happened. Look, he's not a cunning linguist. Like, he's not known for saying the right things at the right time. So I'm not giving him a pass, but I just don't have high expectations for...
Right, but just the way he talked about the turnout. I mean, the president is at a disaster scene. You sort of expect him to come in and say, by the way, did I also tell you by how many electoral votes we won? We had surprises in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania. I mean, that's what it felt like. It felt like it became about that, about the crowd size. It always goes to that. And I'm not saying he was insensitive. I can't imagine anybody going there and being insensitive.
He's incredibly insecure about the fact that he won the election. Yeah. Isn't that strange? I mean, you won, dude. We get it. You won. Let's just move on. Okay. Yeah. So his White House social media director also posted a video of the crowd on social media, which made some people roll their eyes. Take a look at that. All right, so there you go.
I mean, it just seems it's juxtaposed to what's going on in Houston. You know, hours away, these people are literally dying and out of their homes, and you see the people in Corpus Christi, USA, going crazy for the president. I find it bizarre. There's there's a sort of somber thankfulness that you show a president, that they did to Bush, that they did to Obama when he was there. I remember Bill Clinton went to Oklahoma City after the Murrah building was bombed, and he walked into Oklahoma City. I think it's where his presidency took a pivot, but he was treated by this most Republican state in the country at that time, by that crowd, and it was just, hey, thanks for being here. I don't know, everything seems like a rally with Donald Trump. Maybe I'm too picky about that now. Maybe I'm too used to it, but everything seems like a rally.
The nature of that video that's the social media director for the White House.
Right.
So it wasn't an accident. He wasn't on his random page and going, "Hey, this is kind of amazing." People showed up.
Yeah.
This was there was basis. There was a message behind this. Hey, check this out. I'm gonna spam the entire crowd and then back again. Make sure you guys know this. The entire crowd and then back again. The point is to show how many people are there. That is the point. That is the planned effort.
They love turnout.
They just turn out. Despite what happened, look how many people still love our president. Not despite what happened, look how the president's out here to support Americans.
Right.
It's the other way around. Look how many people support me.
That's the best way of putting it and kind of putting things in perspective. This is a moment where we should show empathy and concern for the victims of this storm, and this did turn into what appeared to be like a celebratory thing, celebratory event. Optics matter. And so when you think about optics, it just doesn't look good, but those are apparently, Trump supporters. They were excited that he was there. I do commend him for going to Texas, to be fair. And also, look,
I mean, he was going to go, and he also made a good move to go to Corpus Christi. Initially, he was going to go to San Antonio, which is nowhere near where this happened, just to be in Texas, and they thought better of that idea, that they should go to a place that was affected by it.
Exactly. And as long as they're allocating the appropriate resources to make sure that they help the victims of this storm, that's really all that matters. So, again, based on what I've seen, based on the research I've done, it appears that they're taking it seriously. They are allocating the resources, and fair is fair. That's the most important thing. So that's
fair is fair. But again, and I'm not saying that you're not right about that. Mm-hmm. The work begins when the storm ends, though, and that's where the resources are going to be really need to be scrutinized, because rebuilding, getting people back into homes, people that don't have flood insurance, people who didn't buy flood insurance because they didn't think that they would need it where they were living, make sure that they're not screwed out of getting some kind of support to get back into a home or to get their mold remediated, all of the things that need to happen down in rebuilding all those jobs in the near where the president was. All that stuff has to happen after the storm's gone. I mean, what they're doing now, remarkable, amazing people, thinking on their feet, families, and helping other families and neighbors and all the things you like to hear. But where he's going to be judged, and this administration is going to be judged after the storm.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So, petty thought on that last point, he's a part of the government. This huge government that we want to limit and reduce, of course, and stop from helping people. You're supposed to be there to help people. You're bragging about how awesome and epic and unprecedented this storm was, but that you're going to come and take care of it. Take care of it with what?
Right.
government funds that American citizens pay taxes for.
Right.
So after you do that, and ironically, I saw this on Twitter, so I won't take credit. There's a "Don't Tread on Me" flag in that crowd of raving fans. What is that? What's the whole point of people that carry that flag?
No,
limited government. Stop stepping on my rights. Stop coming in and getting it with your government funding and your bureaucracy and red tape. Hey, you need a little bit of bureaucracy, you need a little red tape, you need some funds to help your
and you
area
need to
recover.
eat some humble pie too, because these are the people that criticize government, want to make government smaller, shrink it to the size of a whatever it is in Grover Norquist's bathtub. But that's exactly right, and I think too that when you see what these people are saying about, and I know we got to move on, but this is really important. That I saw a libertarian yesterday, an avowed libertarian on Twitter complaining that they didn't evacuate the government. The mayor didn't tell us to evacuate quickly enough. These are people who hate government complaining about government. You need government. It's like a malpractice attorney. Until you are a victim of malpractice, you don't care about malpractice.
You're exactly right, and so we will see how it plays out in the future regarding allocating the resources to help people who have lost their property, who have lost loved ones as a result of the storm. But it reminds me, it's a little different, obviously, but it does remind me of car insurance, right? Which we have to mandatorily purchase, and it sucks. Every month you pay that car insurance, you're like, I hate car insurance, and then once you get into an accident, you're like, oh, thank God I have car insurance.
Cool. They just put me in a car and they fixed mine.
Right, exactly. So, look, I think more importantly, it's critical for us to have empathy. So, on any given day, you will hear members of the right, you will hear libertarians arguing against government programs that help the poor. Oh, they're moochers. Why should my money go toward them? There's no empathy toward them. But the reality is, you never know when you're going to fall on hard times. And it is my belief that the role of the government is to protect us, to take care of us in times of need. It's not supposed to be there to regulate who we marry, how we have sex, where we have sex, unless it's public spaces. You probably shouldn't have sex in public spaces. But, it's the role of the government to make sure we're safe and to make sure that we're taken care of. And in this case, it appears the government stepping up to the plate. It appears that those on the right are applauding that. Just make sure you applaud that when those in need it in the future. All right, let's move on to another angle to this story. Hurricane Harvey has severely flooded Houston, Texas. In fact, there has been more than 20 inches of rain reported. 300,000 people were left without power at various times, and more than 7,000 people were evacuated and forced to stay at various shelters, including the Brown Convention Center on Monday night. Now, I'm sorry, the George R. Brown Convention Center. Now, the capacity of that convention center is about 5,000. However, there are varying reports indicating that there were between 7,000 to 11,000 people attempting to find shelter there. So the situation is dire. Let's go to graphic 27. One individual says that it's, quote, hell. He also says, all my stuff damaged. I have no clothes, no shoes, no clothing. So people are desperate to find shelter, and unfortunately, there is very little room to house these individuals and keep them safe. So, as a result, there have been some public figures who have faced criticism for what appeared to be them closing the doors on the residents of Houston. Joel Osteen, who is a very well-known prosperity gospel preacher, originally shut his doors to residents of Houston. He lives in the area as well. However, after criticism, it appears that he opened the doors to his gigantic church, which can house 16,800 people, and is now taking care of them. Now, on Sunday, Lakewood Church posted on Facebook that it was, quote, inaccessible due to severe flooding and directed displaced residents to shelters in the city. The church can hold more than 16,800 people. The Facebook post did court criticism on social media, where photos appeared to suggest that the massive building had not been damaged by the rains. All right, so I'm going to be as clear as I can on this story. There is not a lot of clarity on what's really going on, right? So Joel Osteen is claiming that it was in an area that had a flood warning. He claimed that, the church was not flooded itself, but the parking garage was flooded. People who lived in the area said that's not true. They shared pictures on social media and said there are cars driving in this area. There's no flooding. The church is completely fine. even Snopes looked into it and said that the results of this story are mixed. So it's really hard to assess the situation. But what I will say is, if I put myself in his shoes, and I have very little love for him, if I put myself in his shoes and I had a mega church that used to be a stadium, and there was any potential of flooding or harm, I probably wouldn't take that risk because I don't want to risk anyone's life. That's just where I'm at.
Well, I mean, but here's the thing. The entire city, virtually the entire city of Houston is flooded.
Yeah.
The people that are seeking refuge are seeking refuge from terrible flooding. And if they go to some flooding or perhaps a place where there are services, that's an improvement over where they're leaving.
Yeah.
And so I think the fact that he didn't open it up as a shelter to some of these people, I mean, shelter is a funny word, too, because that church is a 16,000 capacity tax shelter, right? I mean, they are subsidized.
They are.
You know, and he who gets shelter from our government didn't give shelter at a time where the risk, I understand it. I understand why you as Joel Osteen would be, you know, hesitant, right? Hesitant's a better word. But still, this is a disaster. Like, you don't, you know, and he is a minister.
And he's an incredibly wealthy minister. He lives in a $10 million mansion.
Well,
and
then
so,
have them over there. But what I'm saying is, if he was the poorest minister in the world, but he had a 16,000 seat sanctuary, literally, to have people that can come in there, and there was a risk of flooding. There's flooding everywhere. It just doesn't ring true to me. And I'm not saying, you know, I don't know enough about Joel Osteen. It looks terrible to me.
It does look terrible. To be fair, in 2005, he did open his church to victims of Hurricane Katrina. So, you know, in the past, he has helped people, and in a big way. So I feel like with this story, it's kind of hard to tell what's really going on, and I feel bad criticizing him because, again, anytime we do a story, I want to put myself in the shoes of the person that I'm about to criticize and think about what I would do. I don't have hard evidence indicating that, you know, it was either completely flooded, a little flooded, no threat of flooding whatsoever, and so I hate the story because I don't know. And Snopes doesn't know. There's no article that's even clear on it. And so you have to make a decision. Do you risk people's lives, potentially risk people's lives, or do you, you know, open your doors and shelter them anyway?
You open your doors and you shelter them.
Yeah, well, he's doing that now. So
he's doing that now. And most ministers and pastors and men and women of the cloth there are doing it. And, you know, he may have done in Katrina, he may have done many, many things that make him a worthwhile citizen. He made a bad call here.
So despite whether when it happened, because there was water, then there wasn't water, then there wasn't, then there was again. The thought that I had when I saw this was again, it goes back to the policies and also support from your government that you fund. Many people, mostly conservatives, will say, hey, you know, we got to stop handing out all this money to these gimme people and let the churches and charities help.
Yeah.
Churches and charities don't always help. Sometimes they do, a lot of times they do, sometimes they don't. In this case, when they don't, for whatever reason, out of being cautious or just not feeling like it because he doesn't want all these people in his church, whatever reason it may be, he wasn't able to help or wasn't willing to help. That's why you always have your government that you actually pay for do this.
Right.
So it's not always the churches that are going to take care of it.
No, you shouldn't rely upon that. But generally speaking, they that's part of their shtick. Although they probably wouldn't say shtick.
I mean, it goes along with the theme that we see over and over again in the news. People who take advantage of opportunities that lead to their success, and then sometimes, a lot of times, they'll shut the door behind them and not provide the same opportunities to those in need. And so, again, look, if there is any indication that that church was not under any threat and he shut his doors, then he deserves any and all criticism.
Right.
But I'm glad that he opened the doors and he's sheltering these individuals now, especially considering how large that space is.
Right. And considering, again, how much we shelter him with our tax dollars.
Right. Well, that's something that I want to change. Like, that's something that shouldn't even exist. But
it's ridiculous. But that's why I find it so ironic that he wouldn't provide shelter when we provide him shelter every day from the tax structure of America.
Exactly. All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we will jump right into the story of Fox News criticizing Donald Trump. Stick around.
I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. All my life, I was told no.
He said I had small hands. They're not small, huh? I never heard that one before.
I have 5 minutes. Explain the Facebook. Go.
Aaron Wysocki, the commander of the Armies of the East.
So for those who don't know, Aaron is actually Cenk's favorite employee.
Aaron, what do you like better? The Rabies or the Rabies? Go. And I want to do a YouTube live clip, but not live. Go. Hi, Aaron. I'm confused. Is it Cenk Weiger or Cenk Uger? Go.
What I think a lot of people at TYT, and certainly in the audience, don't know is that without Aaron, none of this happened.
Yeah, it's all because of me.
So, Aaron, what would you do to surface the Young Turks, as they say?
Well, the first thing I did around that is we didn't have a video podcast back in those days. It was only a audio version, and I wanted I wanted to watch it at work in video form, so I just created the video podcast. So this is the free version of the video podcast that still exists today. I created that from scratch. So I would take the YouTube clip and rip it illegally back then off of YouTube and just put it up on iTunes.
What were the things you did to popularize the Young Turks?
So one of the very early things that I liked was not necessarily the show, it was Cenk's blogs. I really enjoyed reading those blogs, and I wanted to share them as widely as possible. So at the time, there was a big wave of what they called social bookmarking back then. And so what it meant was like you pull links from, this is Reddit. What Reddit is today, it was much more popular back then, and there were many different websites.
It wasn't until just a couple years ago when Cenk and I were traveling together, we would share a hotel room.
Yeah.
2 grown men sharing a little hotel room. I was like, how much longer do we have to do this?
You're going to be in there much longer?
No, seriously. I'm like, oh, geez, he's in the bathroom again. So I have to go downstairs and use the lobby bathroom. Like that kind of stuff. Like that's the kind of family that we had, right? I mean, but I think
that was such a smart decision, though, because you know what it did? You found people that were dedicated to the company, and in a startup, in those early days, you need to find people like that.
Absolutely.
Hi everybody, welcome back to TYT. Anna and Michael with you. Some TYT lives for you. Savannah, I hear you out. I saw your tweet. She says, important to know there were 21 mosques open while Olstein's church was closed. So we did our best to look into that and verify it during the break. It appears that some of the mosques were open. However, no one has verified that 21 mosques were open. But if there were mosques open in the area and Olstein decided to shut his doors, obviously that's a problem. So thank you for that information. We'll continue looking into it once we get verification information will update you. Also, Chris Hook says, yes, great point by J.R. Jackson. I'm not sure which point, because you made a lot of good ones.
It doesn't really matter. It was all of them.
All of them. Daniel Pareja says, people are people. If they're in trouble, help them out. Doesn't matter if they're in New York or Texas, help them out. Could not agree more. All right. I want to say thank you to our members. You guys help make the show happen. And we like to do some extra content for you guys, members-only exclusive content. Today, there will be a members-only post-game show featuring myself and Brett. And it'll be fun. So you should watch it.
And thank you to my mom for apparently tweeting as someone to tell me that I missed a button on my shirt.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah, it's not really my mom, but it's the only person who would tell me that. So.
That's hilarious. Also, there will be a TYT Old School episode this week featuring Jake Huger, Mark Thompson, and Steve-O, live tomorrow night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Pacific. That is also members-only content, so make sure you check it out if you are a member. If you're not, you can join by going to tytnetwork.com/join. All right, let's get to some Trump criticism. Not by us, by Fox News. Amazing. All right. Fox News recently had a segment in which some of its hosts and contributors criticized the fact that Donald Trump has yet to fill important positions in federal agencies that provide help, disaster relief, for instance, to our fine Americans, our fine citizens. And it was a surprising segment, to say the least, because it featured Laura Ingraham, who's been a pretty big Trump supporter. Let's take a look.
Where's the staff? Where's Homeland Security? Where are the nominations? Why are they being held up? And why are so many positions don't have nominees for them yet?
Yeah, well, we only have had a FEMA director since June. Now, truth be told, the Trump administration didn't nominate Brock until April. So that wasn't a bad turnaround, but I think we can all look at these horrific pictures and we can conclude that a federal government does need staff. We see it acutely in need of staff in a situation like this. This isn't the only crisis we're facing. This is massive, humanitarian. We're also facing a huge crisis with North Korea. We're facing a crisis of confidence across the country, where people wonder, even with President Trump in, he said he was going to drain the swamp, can we have a government that works for the people and not just have a people enslaved to the government? This is a question that has to be posed to the administration. I know they have a lot on their hands, but we have to have people in place. If there's a plan to not staff and cause the ultimate shrinkage of government, let's hear about that as well.
Make government bigger, make government bigger, make government bigger on Fox News.
I know, they're so pro-government. Usually, you'll tune in and they're like, oh, government's so important. We need bigger government.
Right. Well, in Houston, they finally found a swamp to drain, so it's perfect. Now they're totally set up for what they wanted all along.
Oh, and the White House is full of swamp monsters. Let's keep it real, right? Donald Trump did the exact opposite of everything he said he was going to do. You have, Rex Tillerson, you have Steve Mnuchin. Those are the same types of people that he was railing against during his campaign. Now they exist within the federal government, and I can't say they're thriving in the federal government because any of them can be fired at any moment. But, in regard to what's happening in Texas, see that type of empathy you're feeling right now, Laura Ingraham? That's the type of empathy that you should have for all Americans, not just Texans, right? Here on this set, everyone here has empathy for people who are suffering in Texas right now, regardless of their political ideology, regardless of their backgrounds. And that's not the kind of empathy that I've seen from you when it comes to impoverished Americans, Americans who have dealt with institutionalized racism and unequal opportunities. It's incredible how they're unable to see outside of their own bubbles. They only want to take care of their own, but they don't care about others who are in need, right? Government's important when it comes to situations like this. It's important when it comes to protecting national security. It's also important when it comes to protecting Americans in general, regardless of the situation that they're facing. And again, no empathy from them when it comes to those issues.
And wait till the EPA, they start looking at the EPA and what Scott Pruitt and the government has done there and the administration has done there to really gut the EPA. And the EPA is who these people are going to be relying upon to rebuild, to clean up the mess, to clean up the disaster down there. Those positions aren't filled. And the Republicans never think about the EPA. They want to get rid of the EPA.
That's right.
And so it's, listen, it's one of the three things I think that Rick Perry wanted to gut, or two or six. But but it's unbelievable because when you hear this happen, you can't help but think, how foolish these people look, how foolish Ted Cruz looks. We'll get to that later. Voting on, saying that the Sandy bill was full of pork. We need federal aid for Texas. It's much different than when Sandy was happening. These are people who are hypocrites. When they need it, they want it, and you can see the three hosts. I mean, I hate when Steve Ducey's on vacation, but the three hosts there just kind of nodding their heads to a lawyering room, saying, Anna looked at me and said, I don't even know what that means, and I don't know what she meant.
Right. She says we need a government that works, but not a government that we're enslaved to.
Right.
I'm paraphrasing. That's not her exact quote, but that's what she implied.
Yeah, I don't know what she meant either.
I don't know what that is, but we all know that Fox News is a news outlet that Donald Trump loves to watch. So he actually responded to that segment, of course, in the form of a tweet, and said, "We're not looking to fill all those positions. Don't need many of them. Reduce size of government." And he included Laura Ingraham in that tweet. Okay. Here's the reality. He's incompetent, and there's a ton of roles, not just among the agencies that Laura Ingraham mentioned, but the State Department. The State Department still has a number of nominations that still need to be mentioned by Donald Trump, suggested by Donald Trump, nominated by Donald Trump, and he hasn't nominated them yet. And he doesn't really seem interested. It's not about, reducing the size of the government. It requires work. It requires critical thinking. It requires caring and knowing about these issues. And that's not something that he has any interest in.
No. I mean, a surge in Afghanistan, we don't have an ambassador there. Right. I mean, little things like that are not little. And disaster, we don't have people in place. Brock Long seems like he's doing a very good job in that he's learned from the mistakes of FEMA in the past and other natural disasters to a degree, because the next person will learn from him. But it just proves that you need people in place that are qualified and ready for this job.
And I also want to be clear that it goes further than nominations. A lot of things need to be done, including changing Donald Trump's mindset when it comes to certain executive orders that Barack Obama signed. So in 2015, Barack Obama signed an incredibly important executive order indicating that any infrastructure development, any development for buildings, would be required to meet certain flood-proof requirements, to take into account the rising water levels, sea levels, the extreme weather conditions that we're currently dealing with. And so after the whole hate rally occurred in Charlottesville, Virginia, you can recall that Trump gave that pretty crazy and explosive press conference that was meant to specifically talk about infrastructure. And in that speech, he talked about undoing that executive order that was signed by Obama. Now, earlier, we were talking about, hey, it seems like the federal government is handling the situation in Houston pretty well so far, but there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done later. But there's a lot of work that should have been done prior to this, right? We need to take action to mitigate the extreme weather conditions that we're dealing with right now. And the fact that he just undid that executive order is ridiculous. There was no critical thinking involved. He just wants to undo anything that Obama did. Doesn't matter if there was a lot of logic behind what Obama did. He just hates Obama. And so for political brownie points, right? Yeah. He'll go ahead and undo something that made a lot of sense.
And walk away from the Paris
climate agreement. Yeah. All right. One final component to the storm that I wanted to cover before we move on to other things. Fox News recently had a segment featuring Jesse Waters, and he was talking about something that was going viral online. So I'm not going to give a lot away. Let's just go ahead and toss the video, and then I'll fill you in on the details.
I've seen some amazing things out there just looking at television over the weekend. Alligators on people's back doorsteps. I saw a shark on a highway swimming in the water. Like Sharknado. I saw a hawk sitting in someone's taxi cab. Greg and I were saying, the president was using the term biblical. Well, there's some really weird biblical things that are going on down there in Houston.
So he was talking about a photo of a photoshopped shark swimming in a flooded freeway. Okay. Funny enough, is this the shark? Is it Sharknado? Funny enough, it was the same shark that was used in Photoshop after Hurricane Katrina. And of course, it was debunked. Everyone knew that this particular story had already been debunked, and Jesse Waters reported it because, hey, biblical things are happening. Biblical things are happening. They won't believe climate change, right? They think climate change is a hoax, even though there's scientific evidence indicating that it's happening and it's man-made. But there's a shark swimming, allegedly a shark swimming in the highway.
A hawk in a cab, and then it's the Bible. That was one of my favorite passages in the Bible. The hawk in the cab passage.
It's just,
I was even, because a lot of the headlines on this were, dummy Jesse Waters bought that gimmick, right? And I remember you hate April Fool's Day of all holidays.
Right.
Because if we do the show on the day, you're like, I can't read any news because 50% of it is BS, right? Mm-hmm. And so I've never been one to be like, you went for the hoax. You didn't see the hoax? Whatever, man, I didn't see it. I don't care. I don't read everything you read, right? So I was willing to give him a pass on that. Then he decided to go with biblical proportions, which now means the shark swimming in the water. Like you said, the hawk in the cab, I read about it, you heathen. I read about it back when I was in church. And then the alligators in the water. Dude, you're down in the south by the Gulf Coast. It's like saying, man, we're in Louisiana. I heard there was gators out here.
Right.
Come on, of course there are. So anyway.
That alligator was there before the flood.
The biblical proportions, when it has to be, look how God has come in and told the hawk to get the hell out of the hurricane by diving into a cab. And that's a smart hawk. He's getting the hell out of the weather. So they want it to be bigger and more, I guess, prophetic than what it could be. For what purpose? I don't know. To continue to tell their viewers, hey, God is coming, and he's looking into Houston right now.
Well, it's confirmation bias, right? So if you're the type of person who tends to believe something crazy, then you'll see something, even if it's a hoax, and if it meets your bias, then you're more likely to believe it. At least that's what I think. But anyway, he realized that he had made a mistake. He had fallen for the hoax, and so he did apologize profusely. It's just interesting because all the news outlets that get criticized for being fake news are the ones that tend to criticize Trump, in a justified fashion. Yeah. But Fox News never gets called fake news by Donald Trump, right? Their credibility is never called into question. And this story, really makes me realize that.
Yeah, I mean, Christopher Ruddy was on CNN last night, the guy who publishes Newsmax, and he was talking to Don Lemon, and they were having sort of a somewhat highbrow conversation about what fake news is, and Don Lemon did a great job, and I don't always defend Don Lemon's work, but he did a great job kind of defending the selective, the selective criticism that you were just talking about by the president of CNN versus Fox News. Yeah. And it's true. I mean, there is an unbelievable bias that they have, but they will wipe it clean when it comes to the people that like him.
Exactly. I just want to know for the record, we're moving on, but I want to know for the record that you have Sour Patch Kids on the desk. Like a true adult.
Okay. Do we want to get to the bottom of this story here? Where did I get them? Right, fake news over there. He's got a bag of them.
I know. Can you please show the audience the bag? By the way, this is not a plug for Sour Patch.
It's a hoax.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? You don't have it? It goes with your
that is a giant. Where'd you get that? Costco? For sure. Anyway, all right, let's move on.
Do you want one?
Russia. No, I'm good. I had a handful earlier.
She was just pointing it out because I've been offered.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I will update you on Russia and what Republicans are doing to stop Mueller's investigation. Come right back.
Robbie Canal, he calls his work urban beautification.
I didn't go out to be a street artist or to make posters. I was just compelled to do it. I was mad enough. It didn't matter. It was like a form of minor civil disobedience even. Like, fuck, how about your higher ground? Power operates to self-replicate itself to maintain the status quo so it stays in power. When you go to do something like this to express yourself in public about an issue you care about, make sure you pick a bigger weapon, and the weapon is knowledge. The one thing about street art, it's not like I put up my posters to change anybody's mind about anything. The difference between propaganda and the kind of art I do is propaganda is telling people what to think. The way the art works where the art works is between the time you see it and the time you figure it out for yourself. I'm an optimist. I might have made a lot of ugly things and a lot of ugly people, but it's out of love, not for them.
When news is breaking, it's time for Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. This is Brett Ehrlich with Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. Hello, welcome to Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. I'm Brett Ehrlich with Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. Today in the news, voting. I voted Team Edward. Is Twilight still a thing?
I'm super excited because we have different levels of members. They pay $10 a month, but there are some members that pay a little more. Executive producers, for instance. My favorite thing about executive producers is that we have quarterly calls with them. I love that I'm getting a little transparency and I'm knowing what you guys like and dislike, ideas on how to improve the show, topics that maybe we haven't heard of yet you really want us to cover. We have so much respect for you because of the fact that you keep us independent and allow us to be uncensored, unfiltered, without worrying about corporate sponsors breathing down our necks and telling us what we can and can't say. So if you want to be a member, obviously no pressure. You can go ahead and join by going to tytnetwork.com/join. I'm going to ask some uncomfortable questions. First topic that I said that we would discuss a little more is masturbation.
And then I was swimming in a hazelnut river.
Are you sure you're not doing mushrooms? Oh my god, I can achieve an orgasm by myself.
Fuck that, I am going to talk about it, because there should be no shame on it. I think a lot about that because I love life.
That openness led to amazing.
And I keep saying to everybody, oh, I got to go call my wife. I figured that was a good excuse so people can't say, hey, don't call your wife. I'm going to release listen.
It's so weird because at that moment I felt good and it smelled like lavender.
At the end, you get to go check. Nice job. If you're a member of the young person, you too will rock the world.
Welcome back to TYT, and Michael with you. Also on the set is J.R. Jackson, who just read us allegedly a Bible verse.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was tweeted at me, but we'll look it up specifically. Although I memorized every other verse in the Bible from my church-going days. 2 Timothy. You want me to read it?
Sure.
For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. Now, if that's invalid, someone made it up, I don't know, we'll see, but...
Yep, confirmation bias.
Second Timothy does not get a lot of run as a book of the Bible.
Chapter 4, verse 3.
But just Second Timothy. Were you familiar with 2 Timothy?
No.
Okay.
I went to church every Sunday from like 3 to 19.
And he never came up, did he?
He never came up, no.
1 Timothy, though.
1 Timothy, huge. Couldn't get enough of First Dinner.
Okay, here are some TYT lives for you. Ice Cube says, I'm not, by the way, an Ice Cube song came up today on the radio that I had heard forever, and it was awesome. Like, it got me all amped up. Anyway, who cares?
Me too.
He says, I'm not gonna lie, that documentary on Sharknadoes was terrifying. I didn't see it. Did you guys see it?
No, I've seen Sharknado. I've seen real Sharknado, like the movie.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about, I think. Yeah.
The documentary on Sharknadoes, yeah. It was ridiculous, but hysterical.
Travis Moore says, unfortunately, I have no confidence in Trump nominating anyone with experience to these unfilled positions. I agree with you. You know, everyone that he's surrounded himself with is questionable, to say the least. So it's not like I think he's going to make good nominations. I just think him not nominating anyone just shows how incompetent he is and how little he really cares. All right, let's move on to...
Now, we have guests in the studio. We should just say that there are guests in the studio visiting from Wolfpack.
We do?
Is always great. We're not going to say their names because they're missing work for this, so we don't want to say who they are. But it's great when we get support and visitors, and they're on their way to Japan, so they're really missing work. But
oh, wow.
It's great to have.
Great to have you guys.
I shouldn't say Brian. I said his name and I shouldn't have said. Okay, good.
All right. Let's go to Russia. The steady drip of information that's now being publicized as part of the Russia investigation apparently has some Republican members of Congress concerned. So as a result, they would like to do away with some of the resources that are being allocated toward that investigation. Case in point, Representative Ron DeSantis, who is pushing for an amendment to curtail Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian collusion. Now, DeSantis has put forward a provision that would halt funding for Mueller's probe 6 months after the amendment's passage, so it would limit the amount of time that the investigation could take place. It also would prohibit Mueller from investigating matters that occurred before June of 2015, when Trump launched his presidential campaign. Now, that's a little problematic because one of the concerns is that Trump may have worked on some sort of financial deal with Russian officials, and obviously that would have an impact. That would matter. There would be a huge issue there, right? Conflict of interest with his businesses. Who knows what could turn up? But they want to, again, limit the scope of this investigation. And the fact that they're trying to protect Trump is a little concerning. DeSantis said that the order appointing Mueller as special counsel, quote, didn't identify a crime to be investigated and practically invites a fishing expedition. He says that Congress should use its spending power to clarify the scope and limit the duration of this investigation.
And these are things that I'm sure DeSantis could not stop saying when Kenneth Starr was investigating Bill Clinton and Whitewater. I mean, these are quotes from Ron DeSantis, then not even a congressman, saying these exact things. This is ridiculous. This is the most two-sided political speaking out of both sides of your mouth thing ever.
It's incredible that you would identify yourself as someone who wants to essentially halt an investigation into a foreign country meddling in our election. I mean, really, you want to put your name on that? That's just disgusting. The move comes just a day after Representative Adam Schiff from California, head Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, told USA Today that the committee should have, quote, 2 or 3 times its current resources for the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. The provision is not guaranteed, by the way, at least DeSantis's. The provision is not guaranteed a vote on the House floor. The House Rules Committee has wide leeway to discard amendments it considers out of order.
Yeah, this is hopefully will be sort of a symbolic amendment that he's putting forward, because that's what happens in Congress. Lots of them do. They don't make it out of the Rules Committee. DeSantis is also in this said that there's not even a crime. So how could we have a special counsel? Well, he's a special counsel. He's not a special prosecutor.
That's right.
There is a difference there. And so I think when you listen to the way that these things are worded generally, you have to look a little deeper. DeSantis is someone with he wrote a book called Dreams of Our Founding Fathers, which was like not a parody, but getting by in Obama in the era of Obama, which was basically because he wrote the book Dreams of My Father. So it's this political nitpicking that's gone on with DeSantis for a long time.
So this is a symbolic effort. likely a symbolic effort. Like, usually when lawmakers go through with these symbolic efforts, it's because they're pandering to their base or it'll make them look good in some way. How does it make someone look good when they're trying to essentially halt an investigation?
And Paul Ryan, the speaker, says this, the last time he talked about Robert Mueller in this investigation, he said he's a good man and he should stay in there and have our support. So he's not going to have the support of the speaker, but this, Anna, this could, if it sneaks out of the Rules Committee somehow and it gets to the floor of Congress, it's the kind of thing that can get real support from Republicans who want this thing to end. But there are Republicans who don't like the president too, who want to see this continue.
Right. Look, if I were a Republican, I would try to be a leader and realize that someone like Donald Trump, I know it's hilarious because we don't see a lot of leadership in Congress right now, but if I were a lawmaker, I would stand up and say, hey, I don't care what the president identifies as. I don't care if he is a staunch conservative Republican. He does not speak for me. He is dangerous and damaging to the country, right? But you don't see that kind of leadership. I mean, you do among some Republican senators, namely the senators who spoke up against Trump during this whole healthcare debate. John McCain has spoken out against him on various occasions. But overall, you see, the polarization playing out. We support our own no matter what, even if they had unlawful dealings with, potentially unlawful dealings with foreign officials. So you might be wondering, why is this such a big deal? I mean, has anything of substance turned up from this Russia investigation? Well, yes, it has, and so I want to get to that. Apparently, the investigation has found an email exchange between Michael Cohen, who's Trump's longtime business advisor, and one of Putin's lieutenants. His name is Dmitry Peskov. And he asked for assistance reviving a Trump deal in Russia. This was a Trump tower to be built in Russia. So let me give you the details on that. Michael Cohen had written to Peskov, over the past few months, I have been working with a company based in Russia regarding the development of a Trump Tower Moscow project in Moscow City. Without getting into lengthy specifics, the communication between our two sides has stalled. He says, as this project is too important, I am hereby requesting your assistance. I respectfully request someone, preferably you, contact me so that I might discuss the specifics as well as arranging meetings with the appropriate individuals. I thank you in advance for your assistance and look forward to hearing from you soon. So obviously that email, raised some concerns, and the investigation has led to officials now talking to Cohen and trying to get some clarity on what was going on there. And Cohen told congressional investigators in a statement Monday that he did not recall receiving a response from Peskov or having further contact with Russian government officials about the project. The email addressed to Peskov appeared to have been sent to a general Kremlin press account. Cohen also told congressional investigators that the deal was envisioned as a licensing project in which Trump would have been paid for the use of his name by a Moscow-based developer called IC Expert Investment Co. So there's a lot more to this, including the involvement of Felix Sater, who is a Russian broker involved in this deal, and some of the promises that he made in these exchanges. We'll get to that in a second, but what's your assessment of this, Michael?
Well, the assessment is this is a real story. This is what you get from real reporting. And listen, we're never going to know. You started by talking about, does anything come from the investigation? Do we know anything from Mueller? No, we weren't supposed to know. And a good investigation means you're not going to know for quite a while. Mueller wants it to be as leak-proof as he can ask for, and he seems to be getting a good deal of adherence to that admonition to not have leaks. But when we hear stories like this, which is coming from reporting outside of the scope of this investigation, this is just more stuff for Mueller to chew on. This isn't something coming from Mueller. That should be made clear. This is real. This is Donald Trump working as a candidate, having favoritism from Russia, looking for deals that would make him be actually at a conflict of interest as both a candidate and a president and a nominee. So I think this is a serious story. I don't think any of them have not been serious that we've heard from the Washington Post and a lot from the New York Times. I think they're all serious. They all matter. That's why there's a special counsel working on it.
There's a special counsel working on it, and you have Republican lawmakers trying to drain the resources from this investigation so it doesn't continue. So let's talk a little bit about what Trump claims he knows and doesn't know. Now, Cohen said that he discussed the deal 3 times with Trump, and that Trump signed a letter of intent with the company on October 28, 2015. He said that Trump's company began to solicit designs from architects and discuss financing. Now, in terms of the email that Cohen had sent to Peskov, Trump allegedly didn't know anything about it. He was completely unaware. If you choose to believe him, that's on you. That's what he alleges. But there was something really interesting regarding a broker in this deal by the name of Felix Sater. He's a Russian-American businessman who actually lived in Trump Tower. Let's go to graphic 13. Over email, Sater bragged to Cohen that he could get Putin to assist with the project and that it would help Trump's presidential campaign, according to correspondence submitted to congressional investigators. So here's his exact message. He said, "Our boy can become president of the USA, and we can engineer it. It will get all of Putin's team. I will get all of Putin's team to buy in on this. I will manage this process." Now, the deal never went through. They say that the project never went through. Everything stalled. But these exchanges are important.
This single email is more damning than any other email that anyone has ever read about, from Hillary Clinton, from the DNC, from the RNC. This is serious meat to something that is not supposed to happen in American politics, which is meddling from a foreign country in our election process. And that's what this was inviting. That's what this was suggesting was going on. Whether or not the deal happened, of course, the Trump people are going to say, "Oh, the deal never happened. The deal never happened. That means nothing. This is all hearsay." And the fact that the deal didn't happen, we know Donald Trump has failed deals. We know that he has deals that don't happen. He's a businessman. He's been a failed and a successful businessman at different times. But what happened in these emails, when you smell a rat, right? This is smelling a rat, and this is why there's an investigation going on, both in Congress and with a special counsel. And this is perfect for that.
So, just one final point about Sater, just so you know all the characters that kind of play into this whole story. Sater has a criminal record. He served time in jail in the 1990s after a bar fight, and also pleaded guilty in 1998 to his role in mafia-linked stock fraud. Federal officials have said he then cooperated on various national security and criminal investigations. So you kind of get a sense of who this guy is. I think it's relevant. But one thing that I am concerned about is what just happened with Donald Trump giving a pardon to Sheriff Joe Arpaio, former sheriff of Maricopa County, Arizona. He was found in contempt of court, criminal contempt of court. A federal judge found him guilty, and he was pardoned. And so some are now speculating that Donald Trump could potentially pardon people like Paul Manafort if they're found in contempt of court for refusing to cooperate with this investigation.
Yeah, he absolutely could. I mean, the president can pardon whoever he wants. Arpaio's pardon. His crime, besides contempt of court, was violating the constitutional rights of people on U.S. soil, and that he could pardon someone for that, to me, is really challengeable at the court. In the courts, at the judicial level, because if you can pardon anybody who violates constitutional rights, that's different than, this guy sold drugs in the 1970s, he served his time and he's done. That's why there are Justice Department recommendations for who should be able to be pardoned, though the president can pardon whoever they want, and any president can. This, what you just pointed out, though, with Sater and Manafort and all these people that he surrounds himself with, and should he pardon this? Arpaio was a political pardon. This was about, because Donald Trump plays low in the game like that. So he knows that the Arizona Senate race is up. He doesn't like Jeff Flake. He wants to stick it to Jeff Flake, and he can get some partisans on his side there for doing it. So I think it was purely political, but it sets a terrible precedent.
Absolutely. All right, guys. That does it for hour one. Thank you, Michael, for joining us.
Happily. Have a great second hour.
Thank you.
See you guys.
All right. Brett Ehrlich will join in for hour two, so stick around. We're going to do some fun stories, some serious stories. It's going to be great. We'll see you in just a minute.
Serious story?
Yeah.
All right, post game here in Studio B, Green Screen Magico Internet Television. A lot of contemplation. Any conversation that starts with marriage is an interesting thing deserves a little bit.
When the kid cries, perhaps that's the that is an opportunity to do so. It's an opportunity to do so.
Yeah, parenting is you cry, you're gone.
Oh my god.
I love that video.
Yeah, man, I got a great shoot. You're like, my mouth was open, she sneezed in my eye.
I used to have donut tower next to my desk. Yeah, I'll dress up like a girl.
I sound confident now, Anna. When we're off the air, I'm going to be like, how is this going to work?
And you get literally asked why 21 straight times.
Yeah.
And like, at some point, you're like,
right? So I dumped the kids off at her mom's, and I drove down to La Jolla for a day. They're like, but Daddy, no.
Why? What do you mean, why? You asked me to look at you. You did it. You brought it up. You know you're doing it. Why? I don't know why. I was reading. And here's what's different. Like, it is a different feeling. Everybody says this, but it's 5'11" where she goes. I can't wait to go home. Like that. I can't wait to see it.
What you guys do is allow us to be open and honest, and we don't have to worry about censorship. We don't have to worry about sponsors telling us what we can and can't say. We're accountable by our audience and our audience only, and I absolutely love that. That's the best part about being a member. We love you guys.
Hey, Jen, what's up?
Aaron, I didn't show the comments on a YouTube video I did. What's the cut? Go.
They'd rather lose to Republicans than have a progressive win with them. That's how dumb the corporate Democrats are.
The Democrats who vote the state, and at the end of the day, they're the ones who push the right-wing agenda. Most of the people are either unemployed, underemployed, or fucked.
This is why you lost to Trump, you fucking moron. What the fuck is wrong with you?
And whoever wrote that, I'm sure they were typing with one hand and going like this.
The Democrats are dead. The way you feel right now, that's how a chump feels.
Not freaked out.
Ready, go! Everybody? Oh, presenting.
Because you're not presenting is a better way to put it. You just get to sit there and react.
I get to be Jake, where I just let you give a couple details to the story, and then I sound off for like 15 minutes, and then maybe you'll get to comment a little bit, and we'll move on.
I'm fine with that. That's actually great, because I had this feeling I had to have opinions and thoughts of my own.
Now you don't.
That
I'm gonna take
terrifies
over.
me. There's going to be a portion where we look at funny pictures and come up with comments about them, and just react to them, and I am fine with that portion of the event.
Fun.
But in the meantime, do you want to do Twitter reach out or whatever the social media aspect of this show is called?
So I do. Obviously, you guys can tweet to us using the hashtag TYT Live. I highly recommend you do so. We also have Super Chat. These are comments from YouTube Live Chat, which you can join by going to youtube.com/TYT. Sebastian Garcia. Sebastian is one of my favorite names. I love the name Sebastian.
Seabass.
Seabass.
You ever call him Seabass?
I've never used that, no.
Seabass.
Pretty cool.
It's a good shorthand. It's also a fish.
It is. Okay.
Sorry.
He tweeted and said that he liked my glasses from yesterday. Thank you. I got a lot of nice compliments about it. I hate wearing my glasses on air, but sometimes my eyes feel more tired than other days, and I feel like I can't not wear them.
Do you have strabismus?
What?
Strabismus is lazy eye. I dated a girl with a lazy eye, but I always had this feeling she was seeing someone else on the side. The red skeleton joke. Sorry, it's a weird day. It feels strange.
Okay, alright, so TYT Lives. I Am Sock says, why do we keep catching Russian fish? Must be the fisherman's fault. So, in regard to the Russia story, I like that. That's good. Gabby says, really, DeSantis? You want to plant your flag on the Trump-tanic right now? These lifeboats are running out, but have at it, Haas. Yeah, I don't understand anyone who would try to support or protect Trump, especially after what happened in Charlottesville, this Russia investigation. Get out now. You're in the wrong room.
Yeah. I'm tired of feeling this way. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I get really frustrated and I talk about it and I feel like it just breeds so much negativity and now I don't even like myself amidst all of this. We have some stories today that I think will that'll bring us up, buoy us up in this time of feeling bad. It's revolving around dogs and safety.
You made me laugh a lot on the show yesterday, so hopefully that happens again today.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to try it. I have a segment called Let's Make Anna Cry.
No.
About dogs in hurricanes. We'll see how it goes.
No.
All right, let's get started, shall we?
Let's do it.
Trump's thing was too small, so he fired the guy responsible for making it bigger. I'm speaking, of course, about his rally in Phoenix. The Phoenix rally, he tweeted about it afterwards. I don't know if you saw this tweet where he said, "Thank you, Arizona. Beautiful turnout of 15,000 in Phoenix tonight. Full coverage of my rally via Facebook at whatever." And if you watch that video, he says, "There's a lot of people in here. I want the fire marshals to let the ones who are trapped outside in." Well, it turned out it wasn't as big an event as he kind of led on. We have a video that emerged from that event. Let's see if we can take a look. So as you see, as it pans to the side, there aren't that many people. As many folks as he wanted to put behind him on stage in different positions, and as much noise as they could generate from putting microphones near the folks who were there, it wasn't nearly as big as he led on. There was a spokesperson from the city of Phoenix who said, maybe somewhere around the 10,000 person range, where 4,500 to 5,000 were turned away as it was because they got there when it was wrapping up. Another on-site report says that there were about 4,000 people inside, and this made Trump very upset. And so he turned his aggression on the person who's in charge of organizing those events, the director of scheduling in advance, George Gigakos. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he, according to reports, will never manage a Trump rally again. And reports from CNN say that Trump was irate and chewed him the hell out.
Because it was his fault that the crowd size wasn't as large as he would have liked.
Yep, that's it. I mean, there's more reports about what actually happened on the inside. The New York Magazine reports hundreds left early
while others plopped down on the ground, scrolled through their social media feeds, or started up a conversation with their neighbors after waiting for hours in 107-degree heat to get into the rally hall, where their water bottles were confiscated by security. People were tired and dehydrated, and the president just wasn't keeping their attention.
Wow. That is incredible. Like, we just had an election, right? It hasn't even been a year since the election took place. And he's already having rallies. And mind you, he had that rally soon after the disaster in Charlottesville, Virginia. And that rally also included his speech where he was incredibly defensive over defending the neo-Nazis, saying that some of them are good people. Just stop. Just stop. There are nominations that he needs to make in order to fill positions in the White House, among White House agencies. There are so many issues right now that he should be focusing on, and instead he's having a rally as if it's election season. We've already gone through that trauma. Give us a little bit of a breather and actually focus on doing your job for once. I can't believe he fired this guy. It's not this guy's fault that you're starting to lose support. You're making enemies out of allies left and right. You're firing people left and right. There's infighting, there's leaking, there's nothing but chaos coming from the White House. I think this guy, who usually puts your campaign events together, is the least of your problems.
And he had been putting together events in the past. Yeah. Events that were better attended.
Yeah.
And so this is more, I guess, when faced with the decision, if you're Trump, of looking at yourself and criticizing yourself, or blaming it on someone in middle management, that's the kind of thing that he does, where he's shaking these trees. And it's crazy how many people I find out about, like, whose names I find out about, that I would never learn in a million years from other administrations, because right. Trump just got mad at them because something that Trump himself seems to have caused has made news, and rather than take responsibility on himself, he has decided to kick it down at George Gigikas.
So it's a human instinct to not want to take the blame or the responsibility, but it's a human instinct when you are young and immature, and I think even young people are more willing to take responsibility for their actions. Keep in mind that the Republican Party is supposed to be the party of taking personal responsibility. They're the ones who will turn to people living in the most impoverished conditions imaginable, and they'll be like, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, personal responsibility. What about you guys? What about your personal responsibility? What about your president's personal responsibility? That rally wasn't attended by the crowds that you wanted because you suck, okay? You suck. You suck. Your approval ratings are at an all-time low because of, your reaction to Charlottesville, Virginia, and then you're going to turn around and blame other people for it? Take a look in the mirror. I know it's a scary sight, but just take a quick look in the mirror.
And also just like the timeline of who he's blaming and for what. Amid all this, when people in the White House can hear his, chief of, or whoever it is, passing this judgment down to the advance guy, amid all this, Trump is still saying things like, you saw the massive crowd we had. He said this on Monday. You saw the massive crowd we had. People went crazy when I said, what did you think of Sheriff Joe, or something to that effect. So he's firing this guy for a small turnout, which we can see in a video on Snapchat or Twitter proven. Mm-hmm. But he's firing a guy, not necessarily firing him. There's conflicting reports saying whether he resigned or whatever, but it's pretty clear that he's not happy with this guy. Amid all that, he's still saying we had a massive turnout of this event.
Because he's pathetic. He's the guy with the small penis who constantly feels the need to talk about how big his penis is.
Yeah, or he just buys a big truck, has a big... Every one of his buildings just looks like a giant golden phallus. I think.
It keeps happening because no one has done exactly what Anna said was, you suck. This is your fault. He's failed all these businesses. It's very well documented. He screwed this over. He didn't get that deal done. But after all that failure happens, someone still goes, hey, we'll give you another chance. Hey, go edit this one. Hey, let me give you some more money. Hey, we'll put your name on this. And it keeps happening. So he gets to continue to say, I'm awesome no matter how much I failed, because people can give me another chance.
Yep.
And that's what we're doing even with him as president. Nobody in that room is saying, hey, Mr. Trump, you're getting rid of this guy who has nothing to do with your approval ratings or how many people showed up. you just suck. Because if you do, you're getting fired.
You're getting fired, exactly.
But isn't it also weird that like the right thing to do, according to so many in this situation, when you do disagree with Trump, is to resign, creating more space in the White House to be filled with lackeys and yes men? I don't know about that. That was the one thing when the Elon Musk was first called out for being on advisory committees, various like Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. They said you need to get off of this advisory committee, and the answer, I don't know. I'm so conflicted.
I do know. And it's because being on his advisory committee means absolutely nothing. He has no interest in hearing from people who want to challenge his ideas. He wants to do away with people who are going to challenge him. He wants people to stroke his ego and make him feel good about himself. And what he fails to realize is, as he continues to surround himself with individuals who refuse to challenge him, and as he continues to do things that are unpopular and damaging, his approval rating will continue to dip. And he tries to overcompensate by claiming that everyone loves him. And what actually amazes me more than anything is that some of his supporters found pictures of other crowds and pretended as though that was the crowd that attended the rally in Arizona. What is wrong with you people? Like, you're lying to yourself. That's crazy.
I also like the way Trump talks about the event. He's like, Gigi Cosin staged the event. I mean, it says Trump, according to this New York Magazine article, says Trump was criticizing it, saying this event was staged in a large multi-purpose room. The main floor space was bisected by a dividing wall, leaving part of the space empty. There were some bleachers off to the side, but otherwise the audience was standing and the scene appeared flat, lacking energy and enthusiasm in other rallies. I mean, if this is properly attributed to Trump, maybe he should organize all the events.
Yeah, for real.
We'll take down a wall over here. We'll bring in the biggest bleachers you've ever seen. Maybe that's his calling, is to set up like furniture for his rallies.
Maybe.
I think that'd be a good idea. I don't know. I'm more concerned right now that like all the potential things that could get him caught for doing bad stuff were more likely to get noticed with like Reince Priebus as his chief of staff, and now you have like right now the people kind of keeping order are the generals, and whenever I hear like weird third world stuff, it's like there's a dictator surrounded by generals. I don't like that. All right, let's move on to the next story. I will flip this page now. Okay. There are two new lawsuits that have arisen around Trump's trans service member ban. And let's give you a little more information about who's filing them and who's behind them, because they're pretty compelling. The first is from the ACLU. The ACLU's Maryland branch filed the lawsuit right after the trans ban came into effect, and then was last Friday during the news dump brought up again by Trump through a more formal issuance. The ACLU just tweeted, "We'll see you in court." Well, that has come to fruition. They have 5 transgender service members. There's a 9-year veteran, a 10-year veteran, a 6-year active duty airman. It's kind of amazing. There's a 13-year veteran, a 16-year veteran trans service member. They're all behind this. The second is by Lambda Legal and Outserve SLDN, and there's a 12-year veteran involved in that, and then 2 folks who want 2 trans individuals who are trying to join the service, and one of them is Drew Lane. There was here he is. There was a Daily Beast did a kind of an expose, an article introducing Drew Lane, who wants to join the military and the Air Force as a survival, evasion, resistance, and escape specialist. And here's what Drew said for himself. He said, "In my experience, anyone who is meeting the necessary requirements should be able to serve openly. I think the ban would affect a lot of people's futures. They would like to serve and protect their homeland, and it's basically cutting out people's future plans. I wanted to be part of this lawsuit, to be a voice for myself and others who want to serve their countries." Right now, 16 years old.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's a super inspiring story. His mother, Laura Garza, said, as a mother, and Laura has said she agrees with Trump on certain issues, just not this one. She says, "As a mother, I've learned firsthand that this is not that's not a choice that's made. It's actually the way someone is born. It's to do with my child, and therefore I support my child in anything my child wishes to do. This is discrimination and limited to a population of people based on something extremely personal."
Yeah, I absolutely agree with her. I'm curious to see what she agrees with Trump on, but whatever, that's not relevant. Look, that 16-year-old is amazing. The fact that he is so clear on what he wants to do, and he's a person with convictions, a person who's motivated and hungry and wants to fulfill his goals, that is the type of American that everyone in this country should be proud of, not the type of American that we should fight to take rights away from. And so, look, how many 16-year-olds do you see fighting for things like this? And even coming from a disenfranchised group of people, having the courage to come forward and say, no, this is not okay. I'm not going to let Trump stop me from protecting my country, from serving my country. What an amazing person. And look, we all know what the transgender ban was really about. It's about doing something that goes against what Obama did during his administration, because anything that Obama did, regardless of how logical and regardless of how much common sense was behind it, Trump wants to do the opposite, right? It's like he's a child, and he wanted to pander to his base. There have been no legislative wins. He hasn't succeeded in doing anything he promised to do, and this is just an easy way of getting something done. Just going ahead, pandering to his base and saying, look, I banned transgender people from the military, which, by the way, is actually going to cost us a lot of money, because we're going to have to find military members to replace those who are now banned. We're going to have to train them. We're going to have to spend a considerable amount of resources to make sure they're prepared to be part of the military. And so it's just such a dumb, nonsensical way to go about things.
Yeah, and that's if he means it. If he means to ban them, then it will cost, what is it, $70,000 per person. There's up to 15,000 people, trans service members right now, who have joined in the time or come out in the time that it's been in effect, which is just since last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. And what's even more ridiculous is what I mean by if he means it is those folks, according to what was originally laid out in a tweet and later made more formal through this random, ambiguous statement that gives a certain amount of leeway to generals to define whether the people who are in the current service are allowed to stay there.
He's crazy.
It just doesn't make any sense. And what's going to happen is the general after general has said, I don't see any reason why these folks would not be allowed to serve.
That's right. And keep in mind that this is coming at a time when Trump just gave a speech about another surge in Afghanistan. So you want to deploy more troops to a failing war and simultaneously ban an entire group of people from being part of our military.
But it was a similarly ambiguous statement about a surge.
That's right.
The way it was an ambiguous statement about the trans service members. Yeah, we should get them out. You're absolutely right. It's signaling to a base, but you lead all these folks around. We've all worked for bosses like this where it's like, we're going to change it this way, and you just look around going like, how? Mm-hmm. That's literally impossible, and it doesn't help anything. That's not solving a problem. I think the mother's absolutely right when she says things like, these people who are in the military have already passed certain tests. Rand says that it's $2.0 to $4.2 million per year for the health concerns, which is a tiny fraction of the $4.93 billion yearly health budget.
Yeah.
Just the health budget.
No. How about this? Let's just focus on other military waste. We did a story a couple weeks ago about how the military decided to take out a contract with a private contractor that makes uniforms, and they supplied these forest camo uniforms to soldiers in Afghanistan, Afghan soldiers. Forest camo, when the majority of terrain in Afghanistan is desert, it's not forest. And why did they do that? They just wanted to give out a contract to private contractors to the tune of $28 million. By the way, the U.S. government has uniforms that they could have given to these soldiers for free, but they didn't do that. Yeah. So please spare me the BS about, we don't have enough resources. You have resources. They're just for private contractors, not taking care of your own soldiers and members of the military that serve the country.
Now, you might be wondering, when Trump issued the Muslim ban, that was stayed in courts because of certain cases brought, as the person from the ACLU, the staff attorney, Chase Strangio, points out that is not the case with this. According to Chase, the filings don't stop the ban from going into effect. This is graphic 6A. People are already having their health care withheld. People are being told they can't re-enlist or being barred from re-enlisting. The goal of the lawsuits is to stop that from happening and to put the policy on hold while the cases make their way through court, but that has not happened yet. So that's frustrating. That's so frustrating.
It is. It is really frustrating. But, I commend the people who are courageous enough to fight Trump on this. You guys are amazing. Keep the good fight going. I know it feels like it's not going to happen, but I think eventually we're going to win.
Yeah. All right. You want to take a break? Or?
We do have to take a break. Okay. So let's do that. Tweet to us using the hashtag TYT Live. We'll be right back.
If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee you. You said I had small hands? They're not small, I never heard that one before.
Welcome back to TYT Sports. Jason and Francis here. This is where everybody has to listen. Everybody. I am your host, Francis Maxwell. Jason here, welcome to TYT Sports. Turks and Jerks, TYT Sports. Steph Curry signed with Under Armour. Tom Brady's mad, by the way. Do you hear me? Fight on the Ivy Fall! Actually, we'll look in the description box below instead of lining up in the description box below. Editor, throw up another picture of the UK bacon. And another. Then if I throw in another one, is your belly big? TYT is unique in a lot of ways.
I'm going to ask some uncomfortable questions.
I feel like I missed out. So what is going on?
If I don't eat, my head's going to explode.
As I take my shirt off, just goes, is that your body?
Now we move to inappropriate story number 2.
I just never felt guilty about masturbation.
It's amazing.
I could take partial credit for opening up your sexuality.
I was the kid in the pool with the shirt on. Let's just call it what it is. I was that kid.
Well, you deal with the bitch side of it, right? But you're my boss, so that's what happens.
I think we're more like they do see it from a frame of the rich and the powerful, and they don't realize it. The last time that happened, we elected Abraham Lincoln. I don't know. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we unfucked the world?
You and I are disastrous.
Don't stereotype all cops. Don't stereotype all anything. Blowing up like Dave Kohler on Twitter. That's pretty good progress. I didn't know you could leave positive comments. It's a very TYT thing. So a whole bunch of depressing stuff. So that at the end I can give you a quote. Winning is, in terms of change, and positive change, is not just possible, it's inevitable.
Great time to be alive.
Let's burn this mother down. That's what you're saying? Fuck it, let's go do it. That's why I keep thanking you guys for being members. Because together, we got their attention. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay strong.
Hey everyone, welcome back to TYT. Anna Kasparian and Brett Ehrlich with you. A few TYT lives before we move on to the next story. Norma GP says, my cat has more personal responsibility than Trump. It's true. Cats like to dig a little hole for their poo, and then they cover it. You know, it's considerate, and it's thoughtful.
We have a cat. We got it like this litter box, which it thinks it's in when it poops, and it's not. He'll like stand there, and then you come home, and the cat poop will just be kind of hanging out the side of it. Which sounds like a mistake, but the more you look into that cat's eyes, the more you realize it was the worst plan, like the meanest, most diabolical plan, just to be like, I could have, and I know you spent money on this box. I'm still going to make you clean it up.
I have a fun Charlie story for the post-game show for our members, so let's do that. You know I love to talk about my dog.
Yes,
so.
I do.
And it also has to do with poo. Anyway, Unregistered Chicano says, nice to see Trump's Klan rallies getting smaller. I absolutely agree. I mean, take a look at his approval ratings. It's to be expected. And I think the most telling part of his administration is the fact that he continuously makes these enemies out of allies. Mm-hmm. And now that Bannon is salty about his relationship,
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
It's getting so bad that I don't know who's going to run against him besides the ones in the Republican Party who have said they're going to, pretty much. But I think...
Are you talking about people primarying him?
Primarying Democrats and whoever's running against Donald Trump. I think it will get so bad that they can use the slogan, Make America Great Again.
That's true.
Just like, it was better before. We can all agree on that. Let's make it great again.
Remember when we could do our jobs and then go home and think about other things?
Yeah. Oh, I hate it. It's the worst.
Now I go home and I'm like, I feel really guilty having any fun. Like I feel like I'm obligated and responsible to do more. And Friday nights used to be the best because no news breaks on Friday night. Friday night you go home, you get wasted. You know, you do fun things for shiggles. Everything's awesome. But now, Friday night is when shits and giggles. That's shiggles.
I know, but now I just want an entire book on Shop TYT that's your shorthand.
That would be fun. But anyway, now every Friday night, some disastrous story breaks. And, anyway, that's the world we live in.
How to speak Kasparian. Okay, I'm going to write that down. Sell it. I get 5%. 5%, I say. Okay, we're going to go on to a story that is a very serious story, so let's get into it. A jury just convicted a Chicago cop of the use of excessive force for shooting 16 shots at a car, wounding 2 teenagers. The officer in question's name is Marco Proano. The incident, yes, he was convicted of using unreasonable force and wounding 2 teenagers in an on-duty shooting caught on video on December of 2013. He let out 16 shots in 9 seconds at a stolen Toyota Avalon full of teenagers. One of the pieces of evidence used in the case was dash cam video, which we have, which shows how he exited the car and behaved. There's no sound, so we can talk through it. What gets me is turning the gun to the side like a cowboy. Or like, he's in a 1990s rap video.
Yeah. I'm really happy that no one got killed. And look, it was a stolen car, and so they were obviously involved in criminal behavior. There's no question about that. There's no defense of that, at least coming from me. However, look, your job as a cop is to make sure that you protect people. And that shooting happened in a residential area. I don't think anyone deserves to die simply because they stole a car. They certainly do deserve consequences, but that is not the consequence. Trying to kill someone, especially teenagers, should not be the consequence, right? And that was just such a dumb move on his part, to say the least. It actually put more people in danger. It threatened more people's lives, and it just shows how incredibly irresponsible he was during this situation. I'm actually shocked that the jury found him guilty.
Really? Why is that?
Because we've done so many of these stories. Look, Walter Scott comes to mind. Walter Scott, who was literally running away from the cop, got shot and killed in the back, right? Tamir Rice, there was no justice in that case. A 12-year-old playing with a toy gun, he got shot within 2 seconds of the cop showing up to the scene. I mean, these stories keep happening. Philando Castile is another example. Someone who let the cop know, I have a licensed gun in the vehicle. Cop opens fire and kills him in front of his girlfriend and her daughter, who was in the back seat. I mean, these stories are, they just continuously happen. And I feel like we're now conditioned to not expect justice. And so it is shocking that in this case there was justice.
The Chicago Tribune kind of calls the justice system in that region to task. They say that this is a shift anyways in the kind of trials that go on from bench trials to jury trials. They take issue with the number of judges who have just dismissed and acquitted. But this is a shift. They say that this is, quote, the first Chicago cop in memory to be convicted in federal court of criminal charges stemming from an on-duty shooting. He also was the first officer to go to trial in any shooting case since the court-ordered release of the Laquan McDonald shooting video in November 2015 sparked heated protests, political turmoil, and promises of systemic change from Mayor Rahm Emanuel. That the same lawyer that defended the police officer in question, Officer Proano, is the same lawyer who will be defending the police officer in the Laquan McDonald shooting.
Wow.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. The statement was released by the Police Department's union, the Fraternal Order of Police. The president, Kevin Graham, said, the pressure on the police is making the job extremely difficult. It seems that the criminal elements in our society are not accountable in our justice system, while the police face an intense scrutiny for every split-second decision they make.
So I want to respond to that because I think it's important. First of all, the caveat that's always mentioned, and I think it goes without saying, yes, cops have an incredibly difficult job, especially in crime-ridden neighborhoods, and I know Chicago is dealing with increased crime, which is why it's more important than ever that the community trusts the cops, that if they feel that they might be the victim of a crime, they can call the cops and not be victimized by them. And unfortunately, there is a decrease in trust toward police officials because of what we're seeing over and over again. These shootings that occur over and over again. Now, those teenagers were in a stolen vehicle. And so, yeah, they should be prosecuted. They should face the consequences for their actions. That does not mean that they should be shot by that cop. The only way that I think it's justified for a cop to open fire is if the individual poses an imminent threat to the cop. And in this case, even though he said it was self-defense, the jury found, no, these teenagers were trying to drive away. They were reversing. They did not pose an imminent threat to him. And he needlessly walked toward the car. He walked toward the car and opened fire. So again, I am not making any excuses for the criminal activity of those perpetrators, but I do not believe that that cop was in imminent danger and he should not have opened fire. That was excessive force.
Right, and the Jason Meisner of the Chicago Tribune outlines kind of how the prosecution outlined this, especially using the video from the dash cam, saying prosecutors said the dash cam video of the shooting, which unfolded in about 9 seconds, showed Proano violated all of the training he received at the police academy, including to never fire into a crowd, only fire if you can clearly see your target, and to stop shooting once the threat has been eliminated. Exactly. So as you see, the car backs away from him, and he advances toward it, exactly. And again, this thing.
I know.
Shooting sideways with the gun. I mean, that can't be how they train you.
Of course that's not how he was trained. I mean, look, there are flaws in the way some departments train their police officers, but I would be shocked if they train them to shoot like that. Like,
well, yeah. Welcome to training. Day one, we're going to. It's a video portion. We're going to watch. Don't Be a Menace. So if you could just please take your seats and just do whatever they do in this video. I can't believe that. And then also, I think it's worth outlining to people the kind of judge-ordered acquittals that weren't trial-based, the bench trials that are recently in Cook County, as outlined by the Chicago Tribune. In 2015, Detective Dante Servin was cleared in a fatal off-duty shooting of Ricky Boyd, where the judge, in that case, the judge isn't always apparently culpable in this situation. They said everything according to the Chicago Tribune, except you should have charged them with murder and not a lesser charge. 2015, Commander Glenn Evans put a gun down Ricky Williams' throat and was belittled. They belittled the evidence of DNA on the gun as a quote fleeting relevance or significance. The fact that the allegation was the gun was placed in his mouth and there was DNA of Williams on the gun was dismissed as of little significance. And Officer John Gorman, accused of an off-duty shooting, of firing shots at a vehicle during a traffic altercation after he'd been drinking, was released. Keep your eye out for the Laquan McDonald case as it continues. Also, that police officer in question, it was inadmissible in the trial, but over a 3-year span, this is his third shooting. One involved a $3.5 million settlement to the family of one of the people he shot, though that has been overturned and awaits appeal. So I think it's good that we are using more video in these cases. I'm glad that a jury of one's peers was able to look at this and see what a lot of us as peers saw and be like, that's excessive to shoot 16 times. We're grateful no one was killed, but this is one time where we see the video and the jury's verdict, reflects how a lot of us feel.
Absolutely.
So, that's good. All right. Everybody shake it off. This is probably the least important story of the day. I want to make sure I have all my elements ready because we're going to take you on quite a little journey. The NRA's Concealed Carry Expo went down in Milwaukee this weekend, and nothing embodies the unabashed masculinity and bro-kick-acidness of the NRA quite like a fashion show. There was the Concealed Carry Fashion Show where models had certain things like the man pack, the pack and neat, the lady conceal. Let's take a look at some of these hot ticket items that are gracing the runway in Milwaukee, which is that's a gun holster in your bag. This isn't just a bag you can put your gun in. Here's another one. This is the Vinci. Vinci meaning victory, I believe. Conquer. I conquered. This one we need to hold on for a second.
Oh, wow.
What is happening here?
I don't know. It just looks like a guy putting a gun in his pocket.
Why is his shirt nowhere?
I don't know.
Where is it? I see he is growing a layer of shirt from his chest, but that's just hair.
I do want to give him credit for his confidence, though, because it's a confident move. He's feeling good about himself, and I applaud that.
Casting call, looking for models. Run down the runway. Everyman models. And the guy shows up. Sorry, I forgot my shirt. Can I still be in it? Yes.
Oh, man.
Do you have fingers? Yes. All right, put this somewhere near you. Here's the next one. This guy's actually... What's the point of
he's
finger?
having a fun time.
I just don't see that as like a particularly necessary item, I guess.
I don't know what's going on, and I don't know how they decided.
Yes. Live strong, buddy.
I don't know how they decided on who would be part of this fashion show. But I'm curious, if you were offered to...
They're loving it.
They love it.
Yeah.
If you were offered to be part of this fashion show, you'd get paid.
Yeah.
But you'd have to do it shirtless. Would you be into it?
Yes, 100%.
Really?
100% I would do it. Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
How about you? You would have to be
I wouldn't do it.
You get dressed up like the women in the first two, so you're in a sophisticated outfit where you're...
Look, I am not in line with the ultra-liberal position regarding guns, okay? I don't want to ban guns, but I do want common sense gun legislation, gun control. I don't think that certain people who have access to guns right now should have access to guns. I want to close the gun show loopholes. I just want common sense. I've talked about my interest in obtaining a gun for self-defense to, you know, a lot of liberals, they don't like that I have that mindset, but it is what it is. It is a constitutional right. I think that constitutional rights do have limits, including the First Amendment, and I think the Second Amendment should also have limitations. Now, with that said, I don't think of guns as toys. I don't think of them as fashion statements. I don't think of them as something frivolous like that. They are weapons meant to kill. And so as a result, like, fashion shows like this aren't cute. They're not cute. And what it does is it really shows you what the NRA is. The NRA is not about protecting the Second Amendment. The NRA is an organization that's funded by gun manufacturers who want to profit as much as humanly possible. It is part of this capitalistic system that, has a, corporation or a number of corporations who just want to profit at any and all costs. And that's not okay. This is not funny, and it's kind of funny, but it's not cute.
Yeah, those are deadly weapons.
They're deadly weapons. I just want people to take these guns seriously, right? I don't want to take your gun away from you if you're a law-abiding citizen, but I think that we need to have real conversations about gun safety, because we never talk about that, okay? There need to be laws that make it mandatory for people to put their guns in safe places so their kids can't get a hold of them. That conversation never happens. The only time you have conversations is when you hear from the two extremes yelling at each other and ripping each other's throats out. But anyway.
Which they shouldn't do, because one of them has guns.
Right.
Let's take a look at some more photos, shall we?
Yeah, let's have fun.
Let's finish it out. I like it. Because it's a bag. I assume that somewhere in the bag is a location where that tucks away just nicely, because the last thing you want to do is rifle around. You're like, no, that's my cigarettes, that's my lipstick.
She looks afraid of her gun. I mean, I know it's just one picture, but that was interesting.
I think the simplicity of this one's a good one.
I don't get what they're selling. Okay, they're selling holsters?
It's accessories.
Like they didn't exist before?
It is gun accessory holsters, so you're not just tucking it. It seems like you're not just tucking it into your pants, which is the big fear that I always have, even when I'm watching movies. When they tuck it into their pants, I'm like, you're going to shoot your yo-yos off. And this one I love. It's an action shot. I assume the gun is in the bag, but at this point you don't know. She says, girls just got to have guns and ammo, which totally rhymes with girls just want to have fun. I don't know.
Why didn't she just leave it at guns? Like, girls just want to have guns.
Girls just want to have guns. That makes total sense.
So look,
wait, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And she added ammo.
For no reason.
She's like, what am I going to do, throw the gun at someone? You think? I don't know. Do we have the video of my favorite gun accessory of all times, the backup? A video that came out? We do not. There was a infomercial that came out quite a while ago for this thing called the backup, which is literally just a gun rack or your shotgun that slides between your mattress and your box springs, and it's like the backup, which is tucks conveniently under your sheet, so you can like roll out of bed having just had a dream where you're being attacked by like wild buffalo unicorns, and then have your gun in your hand like immediately.
But look, that's what I'm talking about. If you have kids, that is accessible to your kids. I don't think you should store your gun there. Again, I don't want to take your gun away if you're a law-abiding, responsible citizen, but that's not where you should put your gun.
Yep.
Your gun should be in a safe that is inaccessible to your kids and to anyone that could potentially harm themselves. Anyway, whatever. Look, it's a huge industry. People stand to profit, and they're trying to appeal to you. And the way that they do it is, hey, if you're a woman, we got these cutesy little pink guns. It's a weapon meant to kill. It's not meant to be cute. So let's just, for once, take it seriously.
It's a weapon meant to be. Yeah, that is the dress to kill. I already used that joke. I was going to use it. All right, let's move on. $51 billion industry, by the way. Okay. Texas loves its pets, everyone. And amid all the destruction of Hurricane Harvey, it's nice to see some good news and something to warm your heart a little bit, like people saving their pets. Folks have refused to leave their pets behind. which is actually a really, really difficult issue to face when the hurricane is already causing so much death and destruction. The last thing you want to do is have to worry about your pet. Well, it seems like, according to Monica Schmidt of Houston's Humane Society, it seems like everyone coming off a boat is carrying a dog or a cat. Apparently in Katrina, 250,000 dogs or cats were displaced or died, according to the ASPCA. People stayed behind. Now there are shelters that are taking this into consideration and allowing people to bring their pets with them.
Oh, I love it.
Which is so nice. Houston's Bark Animal Shelter on Monday set up a trailer to help house displaced pets at one site that wasn't allowing pets inside. It said on its Facebook page, which is so nice. The Humane Society in Houston's 300 animal shelters will transfer existing animals to other locations after waters recede so it can take in an expected surge of stray animals. Is the zoo okay? I'm sure you're wondering. The zoo is okay, according to the report at the Houston Zoo. Although some of the animal enclosure moats were filled with water, the animals on the other side of those moats were fine. Okay. 30 people stayed behind. The zoo's okay. Ugh, do you want to play a game called Make Anna Cry?
No, I don't want to play the game.
Because we're going to see some people who fled the waters to get to safety, and they brought their dogs with them.
Okay.
Anna, picture little Charlie.
No, don't do it, Mama. Oh, I would not leave Charlie behind. There's no way, there's nothing that could convince me to leave him behind. Look, there were stories of people who were being turned away from shelters that weren't allowing pets. And so family members would take turns waiting outside the shelter just to be with their pet. And so, it's raining, they're drenched, it's uncomfortable, but they don't want to leave their pets behind. I would do the exact same thing. There's nothing that would make me leave my dog behind.
Would you look like this person hauling your dog to safety on your shoulders?
That's really sweet.
Look at that. That dog is so cooperative.
And so cute.
I knew this human would come in handy. People passing dogs off in little coolers when they get to safety. Look at them go. Holding their dogs, waiting to get into the buses to be taken to safety.
Look, for some people who don't have a dog or a pet, it seems ridiculous how emotional people get about their pets. And I know that it's not the equivalent of a human being, and it's not the equivalent of having a child. All of that said, it feels like a family member, right? So Charlie feels like a family member to me, and I get super emotional thinking about what life is going to be like when he's no longer around, because that's going to be part of life, and I know it's going to happen. He provides so much emotional support. Like, he's just a dog. He doesn't intentionally do that, right? But look, last year I dealt with depression and anxiety, and it was bad. And I really didn't start getting better until I got Charlie, until I adopted him. And it was the best decision of my life.
You're in the middle. Over here is Charlie. Over there is Christian.
Oh, come on.
You have to choose as the floodwaters rise. Yes.
No,
Incidentally, you're an Olympic swimmer.
I'm not answering that question.
Think about it.
No, I'm not going to think about it.
Answer it. Look in that camera.
No.
Look in that camera. Look at it.
What's wrong with you?
Answer it with your eyes. You don't have to say anything.
I'm not answering this question. This is just a wrong question. This is the wrong question.
All right, we have two or three more photos. Let's finish the photos because they're going to warm your heart and make you feel okay. So she's carrying her pups, one in each arm. This one is more of a cat person's photo. Look at the cat.
I feel so bad for these people. I feel so terrible for them.
The cat ones are the most impressive when they say they're people carrying their cats, that the cats would participate. Now, this one is...
No, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, so for those of you who are listening in on Sirius XM, the picture features, an older man who, obviously his property has been severely damaged by the storm, and he's embracing his dog, and it appears he's sobbing, and it's a very emotional photo.
Yeah.
And
when it was reported on, it was said that this man was recounting what he considered the most frightening experience he'd ever been through, and he had his dog there to get him through it. Who looked up at him, and he had to make a decision between his dog and Christian.
I get it.
It was weird that Christian was there, your husband.
Yeah.
But he had to make that decision.
You gotta stop.
All right, we'll find out when the cameras stop rolling.
Anyway, my heart goes out to all those people in Houston, and I can't imagine what it's like to go through all that. And I'm not crying; it's just I got something in my eye. But yeah, it's a tough thing to have to leave your pets behind, and I know that a lot of people in Houston did have to make that decision and did lose their pets as a result.
Right. And I go through and I find these stories. I mean, of course, stories of people, we've covered that in other parts of the show, but the stories of folks they went and doubled back, and folks are doing that now, doubling back to see if they can find their dogs.
Yeah.
And many of them do, which is great, and it's nice that they're allowed. Stop crying, it's embarrassing.
I'm not crying, I'm good.
I get less emotional when it feels worse.
What about your cat?
I don't care. Sometimes my fiance will just be like, this thing will die someday. And just look at me. It's really depressing. She gets dark. Okay, let's move on to the final thing. Pizza time. Zombie cars will be bringing people in Ann Arbor pizza. What do I mean by that? Well, Domino's and Ford are teaming up for a new initiative where driverless cars will be dispatched to certain lucky Domino's pizza ordering fiends, and they will be extremely confused. So the idea is that they will have a random person will be chosen. You'll use the Domino's app. They'll pick a random person. They'll give you a call and say, are you okay with a driverless car getting there? And after that, quote, people will have to come out of their homes and type a 4-digit code into a keypad on the mounted on the car that will open the rear window and let customers retrieve their order from a heated compartment. The compartment can carry up to 4 pizzas and 5 sides, Domino's Pizza Inc. says.
Only 4 pizzas and 5 sides?
How many pizzas do you order?
I mean, sometimes you want variety. What if you're having a pizza party? You want more pizza. But anyway,
I have more friends if I need to order that.
Anyway, that's not the main point I want to make. Look, this kind of stuff is happening among various companies throughout the country. And I'm not just talking about driverless cars. I'm talking about, jobs being lost to automation.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes when we discuss bringing jobs back to the United States, we'll focus on positions that have been outsourced, which that's a legitimate conversation. But a lot of people are going to lose their jobs because of automation. A lot of people have already lost their jobs because of automation. I'm not saying that I don't want to advance technology, but we also have to think about the ramifications of advancing that technology. Now, at the same time, we also have a political party that is fighting tooth and nail to dismantle public education, which will essentially do away with opportunities for people to, learn the skills necessary for a competitive job market. We can't let that happen. We need to make sure that our workers are skilled, that we have access to affordable education on a college level and free education on a grade school level. These are the kind of things that come to mind when stories like this come out. While it's exciting that technology is advancing, it's also a little scary because people will lose jobs and ways of earning money.
Yeah, it's strange because it was reported that according to the CEO, we'll go to graphic 31, Wiener said the company has 100,000 drivers in the U.S. In a driverless world, he says that he could see those employees taking on different roles in the company.
I hope so. I hope so.
It's weird.
Well, we'll see how it plays out. Anyway, we do have a post-game show for our members, so if you're a member, stick around, and of course that will be live. Brett will be joining me. And for everyone else, have an awesome night. We will see you tomorrow. Ready? Bye-bye. Bye.